Hello, everyone. My name is Kashawn Hopkins. I'm an instructional technology specialist from Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. And today we're going to do something a little bit different with our tech talks. I'm going to talk about um, a subject and use a tool as sort of like showcase the tool and say how it connects with that subject. So in this case, I'm going to talk about locally and globally collaborating. In this tech talk, I'm also joined with my colleague. I think it'll be worth your time to get to know him. So yeah, I want to yield some time to him. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Kurt Bernhardt. I'm the technology director here at OPSRC. Kashawn and I make up the technology team, and we're here to help you with any type of technology from networking down to the technology in the classroom.
And I think a great way to connect with either of us would be through techteam at opsrc.net. That is an email we both share, and we both try to respond as soon as we possibly can. So yeah, that's a good way to reach us. Other things that you might want to be aware of before we start diving into this topic is these slides. If you want access to these, I think they have great resources on them, and they have essentially all my notes on them. So if you ever want to revisit this topic or you want to expand on it with me, I would love to have that conversation. I'm sure Kurt would as well. But just to get yourself started, I have included a link to the slides, which I'm going to read out since it's case sensitive, just in case you might need it that way. So the link is lowercase t period lowercase ly / lowercase g uppercase c uppercase b lowercase m. Now, this tech talk is being recorded, and all of that, along with the other tech talks, are going on the tech talks page on the OPSRC website. So if you go to opsrc.net / tech talks, you can go there, and we'll just visit there for a moment. You can see our upcoming tech talks on here. So you can register them, and they have the relevant times attached to that. And this whole section that I'm doing is going to be really similar for us, like taking one topic and having a tool sort of showcase that topic is like I think is a good example of it, and then go from there. So we have a couple of really good subjects I think coming up, and I'm hoping to do more in the near future. Additionally, there is a button in the middle of the page for you to suggest any topics or tools that you think if you see that there's something is missing on these tech talks, I'd love to get the advice from you. And below we have the archive tech talks, a treasure trove of topics I've already done. There's tons of them and a variety of different types of topics, from technology standards, integration models, special interest topics, and individual tech tools, kind of like on the surface level. If you didn't know about these tools, here they are. In fact, I am using Flipgrid, which is currently called Flip. They recently switched over about a month ago to this different type of branding. So if you hear me call it Flipgrid, that's just me sort of getting used to the switch over here, and then you'll see that denoted on these older videos that I've done on here. But yeah, the assumption with this tech talk is that you already at least have like a basic idea of what Flipgrid is. You might have logged into it already. You may have even used the topics already. So I won't spend too much time going over those. But if you ever need, if you feel like you do need the basics or you need a refresher, there is Flipgrid that I've done here, and I've also done a sort of sequel extension to it, Flipgrid 2, on there. So check those out if you want something like what I'm doing here, but for the specific tool itself. And so I've even highlighted the tool down over here just in case you need the website, who knows. So that is introductions out of the way, sort of setting the table for the rest of the tech talk. Next thing I want to jump into is my objective here. So after this tech talk, educators will be able to integrate Flip into their classroom to help students broaden their perspectives and enrich their learning by collaborating with others locally and globally. And so one of the key skills that the National Education Association tries to promote is being able to communicate and collaborate with other groups. And this is an essential skill for students just because of our world is already connected, through the internet, and the emergence of working more in projects, working with groups, taking ideas and synthesizing them together to create solutions to problems. And it's hard to really even predict what types of problems are going to come up. Um, we're currently here 2022 still dealing with the repercussions of a giant global pandemic, and the way that we are trying to find solutions to these big giant ill-defined problems is being able to take a look and see what can individuals bring to the table. Not just that, scaling that up and thinking what can groups bring to the table, different organizations, uh, groups that don't necessarily have um, the same values, but they at the very least has a common shared goal of tackling a problem and engaging it and looking in a bunch of different ways. And we want to prepare our students for that sort of ill-defined future there, because I think without the experience there comes that anxiety of first getting to know those people or getting to know those groups and looking a little bit beyond yourselves and really considering um, possibilities that you wouldn't consider without the actual experience that comes with that. So that's why I think this is a valuable thing to look at. And I think Flip is an excellent example on if this is something that resonates with you. I think this tool has a lot of that baked into it just by the nature of the tool itself. And so I'm hoping to illustrate that soon. A quick schedule of the how I want to sort of build this argument for Flip being a really great tool for collaboration is this little schedule that I set here. I want to talk a little bit about what I'm hanging all of this on, which are the ISTE standards. They're the technology standards. They're used internationally. They're used in every single state in the U.S. And so quite well known. And so it's easy to sort of hang my hat on what's already established there and then build from there. And so we're going to focus on the standard that I built this out of, which is the Global Collaborator standard. Then I want to connect that to the features that are contained within Flip. Then I want to break down the standard. Each standard has a couple of different substandards that I think are worth looking at. We'll take a look at it very just like a brief overview of those. And then I'm going to reconnect those substandards back to Flip and sort of like build them onto each other. And then using that as a strong foundation, I want to jump into applications, make some suggestions on some moves that you could make that will allow you to take whatever you're doing with your classroom and have them practice and give them the space to be global collaborators. And then we'll finish things up like we usually do in my tech talks. We'll talk about I'll point out some resources that I've personally used. Yeah, we'll wrap things up. All right, so let's jump into the standard itself. I'm going to read it essentially verbatim. You can find all of this on the ISTE standard student page. I've linked it on the bottom left-hand corner down here. But Global Collaborator is students use digital tools to broaden their perspectives and enrich their learning by collaborating with others and working effectively in teams locally and globally. So this is our what. Our why this is important, I think, comes with what I have emphasized a bit here. What we want to get out of there is for students to broaden their perspectives and enrich their learning. We want them to take a look at experiences that go beyond themselves. That way, they can take those different separate experiences, those cultures, those backgrounds, and take it back and use it to inform their learning or display that their whatever they're learning is going to look like. And the how of that's being done, I think, comes into this section over here that I'm going to use to connect to Flip. So this would be having the space to collaborate with others and working effectively in teams and working not just on the scale of what's available in the classroom or even what's available in the community, but on a global scale. How do we connect with people that don't live anywhere with us? And I think this is a place where technology can really step in to help make those connections, to bridge those pathways that wouldn't have been available without it. So taking that little section there and then connecting it all to Flip, I've taken three things that I've pulled from the standards themselves: collaborating with others, working effectively with teams, and working on a local or global scale, and connected it with things that I think are available on Flip. So just as a really quick reminder, um, Flip is a video discussion uh, um, board that you can create your groups or communities based off of certain topics. And then there's a lot of features that reinforce that. So, sorry, I got notifications on my phone. For collaborating with others, the idea of having a common topic. So if you are in a state where you need to introduce your students to the topic, because I think a really great place to start, like as far as what technology integration the framework suggests, is starting at a place where you're just getting students comfortable with the tool itself. So in this case, educators, you'll probably have to take the lead on this. If students are not familiar with Flipgrid at all, we're going to have to create a space where they are able to jump in and start doing some of those procedural moves. So things like, having your students connected into there. Remember, one of the things that you can do on topics is invites your students. If you already use Google Classroom, invite them through that, or you can have them use a join code and have them just getting used to doing a response. And students, uh, at the very least, because it's something that I've said in previous Tech Talk, at the very least, give them the opportunity to choose how they're going to connect through Flip. I know the most common way is having them record a video footage and then add whatever they want on that. But there are also other options, like if they're only comfortable just talking through a mic and having no video, that's fine. I totally understand it, because even though I record videos and do presentations for a living, I know it can be kind of weird to see yourself on the screen and kind of essentially talk to yourself to record footage. So I know that comes with practice. And sometimes students can work themselves through that, and sometimes it's something that they're going to have to wrestle with. But there's other modes to where they can just do sort of like a podcast type deal where they're just using their voice. There are ways where they can splice together clips as well, so that there's still something visually going on while audio is being provided. I've even seen students use like text to speech tools, so you can bring in other tools to work inside of this Flipgrid playground. But I think having students make that choice on how to engage initially into a place where they're comfortable and they're using the tool and they're getting familiar with, I think that's a great place to start. If you want to bump this up a notch, that is where working effectively in teams comes into play, because if you're giving students more responsibility and giving them more control on the direction their education is going to go, they're going to have to start working on those tools that allow them to negotiate how a group is going to go. So this is something that we talked a little bit about last week. If you were in for my other tech talks about digital citizenship, like how students portray themselves and how they effectively work with like a digital golden rule of being able to treat others the way you want to be treated, and having those expectations established. And I think Flip has a great way of doing that on the topics themselves. At the very least, even if people, I want to say broadly people instead of just students, but at the very least, if their values don't necessarily align, I mean, they're not going to be the same person. They're bringing in their experience and their different viewpoints and their cultures. At the very least, they have the commonality of having one single topic that they can focus in on and explore through. And I think this gives a wonderful, I want to call it like a playground, like a sandbox for where the stakes are low and students still have that space to explore. What does it mean to interact with other people? Um, Something to keep in mind though, because if students are just contributing to a topic, they just need the join code and they can work from there. But if they want to create, if you want to give them the space to create their own topics, they're going to need an account because there needs to be an account along with that. And then lastly, pushing students to connect on a global scale. And so I think this is where, like, I think you can get a lot of ground. You can essentially spend an entire year on this first two bits here. But I think if you feel like your students or your classroom is at a comfortable level where they feel secure in themselves, I think something that is going to really push you and push your students to really taking advantage and really see what this tool is capable of by pushing them to connect on a global scale. And students, they're already doing this at some case. If they're connecting out, if they're creating content on YouTube or they're pushing things out on Twitter, Instagram, those different social media, they're already connecting to different things, or they're playing a video game and connecting with people from different places. They're already doing this on some scale. And I think being able to leverage this tool on a global scale. There's a system for it called GridPals. If you haven't used it, I think it's worth taking a look and exploring and seeing what those options look like, because it's really essentially you put a profile up and you can have other educators connect to you, or you could look through and search and connect to other educators and really set up opportunities um, for students to connect with students that they will probably never meet, but just hearing from their perspectives and seeing, oh, I've never thought of doing things this way or thinking about it in this fashion, is where I think the real value is on. And I think this is where it pulls together that collaboration aspect to it. And it sort of reminds me, I'm glad that they named it Grid Pals. It reminds me of doing Pen Pals. Like whenever I reached out, I just remember very vividly being in elementary school and then writing letters to students in other schools across town. It was just fun having that connection. We even had like a specific day where we actually got to meet our pen pals. And yeah, so it's just cool seeing that and seeing that we have the infrastructure in place to make this happen, but on a scale that, like, instead of just connecting within your town, you can connect with classrooms in completely different countries and see how things are done there. Okay, so I think that's enough of the connection from there to there. Something that I want to dive just a little bit deeper on the ISTE standard part of it. If you go there, there are, and just in case you've never been to this page, for the ISTE standard for students, you can see all 7 of them here. Each one of them you can click and it shows you substandards in all of them. So I have summarized each one while I'm talking about, so that way I'm not reading all this word for word. But I've summarized them down and put them on here so we can take these usable chunks and turn them into applications. And I'm really just kind of expanding on these applications I've already talked about here. So the substandards here, starting from top to bottom, I've labeled them using the same convention as they had on the page. So A, B, C, and D. 1.7 referring to the global Collaborator standard on here. The very first one is connect with diverse learners. The second one is examine issues from multiple viewpoints. Third is contribute constructively to project teams. And D is work with others to investigate solutions. So I don't think either of these are too far from the different applications we've already talked about. So I've put them all on the same page here, so you could have them on the side by side, but just talking through these substandards and connecting them to the applications that we already have. Starting from the top and working my way down, we have an opportunity to connect with diverse learners. And so, and this works on each one. I think these work on all of these different applications here. If you're inviting students to work with each other within the classroom, you have that opportunity to, depending on your learning environment, to coach students through, to give them a space and say, okay, I need you to find a way to get comfortable with using this tool and putting yourself out there and gaining that experience and that expertise on there. And then you're contributing. Everyone can see, when you're posting, however way that you're going to reply to a topic. And this can be something as simple as just like, hey, describe what you did on the weekend, and just keeping that prompt open-ended and ill-defined, because if you're going to explore problems, sometimes those things are going to be open-ended and they're going to be ill-defined, and it's up to the community to negotiate how to engage in that problem. So yeah, if you're having everybody work on a common topic, you're working with the diverse learners within your own classroom. If students have the opportunity to create their own topic, then they get more experience um, negotiating how groups are going to interact, and what they're going to work towards. And then, of course, if you're working on a global scale, you have diverse learners everywhere. So it's really not hard to apply the standard, the substandard, I think. Next is multiple viewpoints. I think this already works sort of well with the first substandards on here. And this works with the different applications that we have here in a number of ways. Project teams on here. And so this is, and it works very similar to how teams engage problems and projects in the first place. They have, their set of expectations. We have a common problem that we're wrestling with. And in this case, Flip uses the terminology of topics on here. And so, yeah, I think all of these fit all of these substandards in here. And then the possibility of investigating solutions to issues on here. And I think this really depends on the topic itself and the technology that is associated with it. Flipgrid, I think, in a bubble by itself, can lead to investigating solutions, but it really just depends on the community itself and the leaders that are either established on there intentionally, or that just sort of come out naturally on there. But yeah, I think this substandard requires just a little bit more massaging and figuring out and being really intentional on what the topic is, and setting that expectation of what we're going to get out of that topic. Because everybody can contribute, but you're not entirely sure exactly what they might contribute unless you set those expectations. Okay. Something that I did want to spend a little bit of time on, because I think we've covered quite a bit of ground already. But just in case you missed it, I think you should try out, if you are still unsure, I think you should try out these different applications with Flip on here. And something that I did want to show off just a little bit here is GridPals, since I think it is a system that is a little bit overlooked in favor of just being able to create a space in a topic, and then moving from there. I think that's a great. I tried to order this, at least this list. I don't know if I'll be able to do the other ones like this, but it sort of just worked out here. In terms of complexity, starting from the top application to where you're just inviting students and really the educator is sort of in control of what's happening with the topics here. So I think that's the most simple level, just getting students more acquainted with the tool itself and working with there, and then moving it up to, okay, students, here you go, here's the tool, have some fun, make a mess, but really make sure that is a structured mess in a way, and then becoming that facilitator there. So I think that works with that, and then working on a global scale. And I understand in this one, if you are either, and it just depends on your comfort level, trying to make these connections yourself is probably the safest way, I think, of doing that, because really anybody can create an account and put the stuff on here. But if it's you reaching out with your profile, I think that's probably the best way to go about it. So let me spend a minute or so just looking at this, and then we'll wrap things up. But I hope this was at least worth your time, what we've discussed with already. But I'm going to jump and flip. I'm going to log in just real quick. It looks a little bit different because of the rebranding on here, but the functionality is essentially the same. Okay, I already got some topics there on here, which is great. If you want to get connected with GridPals, you'll have to go to the top right-hand corner and click your profile picture. Mine is that little smiley guy with the sunglasses on there. I like that. So if you do that, you'll get the drop-down menu. If you click on GridPals, it will give you a small description of what that is, and you can learn more of it. But what's really nice, and I think it has done this because it knows my location here, is that you have these little buttons, these little plus buttons of everybody that is connected on this global network right here. And you're not just limited to what's going on there. We can zoom out a little bit and move to different places. It's a little bit slow on mine, but you can see that there are networks across the world that you can connect to on here. And the way to get yourself started on here, which is also highlighted, I included a resource specifically about GridPals on a resource page. But if you want to get yourself started, you can click on active. Oh, something I forgot to do. If you click on any of these plus buttons, you do get a little pull up here. So let's see what's going on with someone in Canada. It's a little weird on my screen. I don't have a whole lot of real estate here, but you can see that I got a little information bubble here on who this person is, Paul Stanford, and ways that I can connect with him. Oh, geez. There might be too much on my screen at the moment, but I can see what community is, and I have a little Facebook, because you can choose on how you want to put yourself out here. And in this case, Paul put out a Facebook page that you can use to connect with him. But yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see, ooh, hey, I see a familiar face on there. Awesome. You can look for GridPals in specific areas. You can filter it down to a community or a particular subject, or you can search for a specific person if you already know your name, and then get connected on here through this list. If you want to put yourself out there, if you click on at the very top section where it says hidden or active, if you click on active, it'll ask you to review your profile. And so I will put some information on here. You fill out the fields. You can put what community you're a part of on here, and you can put multiple communities if you want to. You can put in your subjects on here, which you can also put multiple ones, and then your GridPals location. So in this case, I'll put where we are at and click next. And here is the thing that you want to make sure that you're careful for. But this is how other people are going to connect to you, either through your email or social connections. There's all the social media whatnots. They even have Skype on there. Fantastic. And I'll be honest, I don't know what a Voxer is, but they got that too. So if that is the way that you want to connect, that's awesome too. And then once you do that, you click on Become a GridPal, and that puts like your little plus sign on here. So I think this is a good first step on getting yourself out there, and you are essentially representing your group. And the way that I can see this connected is that you can either reach out to an educator or they can reach out to you. And once you've made that connection, just saying something as simple as like, hey, you want to be GridPals, and maybe we can get our classrooms connected. Then you can create a topic that is shared between the classrooms. You can share that group code out, and you can do, if you haven't taken advantage of this already, if you go into your topics, I believe you can do this with groups as well, and go to edit topic, I believe. No. Sorry, this might be groups. Groups is what I'm looking for, I think. But there is a way to connect a co-group group person. Sorry, hang on. I know it's one of these things. It is not on here. But you can connect a I know they used to call it co-pilot, but I'm looking for the co-teacher section for this. Ah, there it is, under groups, add co-lead. If you click add co-lead under group, that's where you want it, and you can connect it through the email on that. And then from there, you're building out, you have this shared space, then you can start throwing topics at your group, having them reply, having them look at each other's videos, having them comment on there, seeing how they would approach a problem. And it could be just something as simply as just having a shared problem that they have to work their way through and explain the process and how they do it. And I think there can be a lot of value in that. So start small, and then you can work your way out. Okay, let's finish things up. I am out of time here, but I just want to take a moment and say thank you so much. If you stayed with me up to this point, I really do appreciate you taking an opportunity to really explore this topic with me. I have a page on all of my resources. It's a remix of the Flipgrid goodies page that I had before, so recommend that you take a look at that. I have a page dedicated to technology integration. I know ISTE standard was a big part of this, so I put it right at the top. But I've also integrated some other stuff on the background that I didn't think I had time to really had to go over. But I have talked about it in the previous, like when I talked about Flipgrid when it was known as Flipgrid. So there's some information there if you want to explore technology integration business that I used here, the standards and the frameworks. And then finally, a page dedicated just saying thank you so much for listening to this Tech Talk. I really do appreciate it. I've really enjoyed the direction that I've taken these Tech Talks, and I'm hoping to do more, at the very least, one for each ISTE standard there. So we'll see how that goes from here. If you have an opportunity, please go and do the evaluation. It'll only take a minute or so. It's a few questions, but it really just helps make these Tech Talks a little better. Just in case, I've been Kashawn Hopkins. I'm joined here with Kurt Bernhardt, our technology director. Thank you so much, Kurt, for joining us on this one. Reach out to us through techteam@opsrc.net. If you want access to these slides or any of the recordings and anything that I've done, opsrc.net/tech talks is the way to do that. And let's connect on a global scale here. We can do that through the social media. We've already laid the groundwork for those spaces, and we've seen educators take advantage of it, and we would love for you to do the same as well. And so I have those lovely buttons for you to click on. They're all interactable. But at least for now, one last thank you to everybody here, and I hope you have a great day.